Hi there, Sammy J here. You're listening to Torrent This with Dando, and I think it's a very good thing you are.
Welcome back to Torrent This with Dando, and now I'm joined on the line by one of Australia's most acclaimed comedians. You may have seen him host this year's Melbourne International Comedy Festival Gala alongside everyone's favourite purple puppet, Randy. He and his partner in crime, Heath McIver, won the Barry Award for Most Outstanding Show in 2010, and he's currently performing his new show titled The Inheritance at the Forum. I'm, of course, talking about Sammy J. Sammy, thanks for your time, man, and how's things?
Things are very well. Brendan, how are you going?
I'm always good, sir. Was the Easter Bunny generous to you this year?
Oh, the Easter Bunny pretty much gave up on me a few years ago, I think.
Oh, really?
I haven't seen chocolate. My last Easter Bunny moment was really the death of innocence. I think I was about 12 years old and went out to the back deck, and I think my father had perhaps forgotten it was Easter at the time, because all I saw was just a bunch of little Coles chocolate eggs that had been thrown from the deck, sort of hurried frenzy of activity. They weren't sort of hidden inside the tulips or anything like they were in the
How earth-shattering is it when your parents finally tell you the truth?
Yeah, well, I don't think we even had a conversation. I think we just sort of, my dad was standing behind me wheezing, looking asthmatic, clutching an empty bag of Easter eggs. So, that was the end for me. So Easter and I parted ways a long time ago.
Well, you kicked off the Inheritance Tour a couple of weeks ago. Has it been what you expected so far?
Yeah, well, it's probably been better than what I expected, to be honest. I tend to go into each festival, expecting the worst, and then you can be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
But no, we're in a big venue this year at the Forum in Melbourne, which is huge. And
yeah.
Got in there for sound check, and I was just sort of,
packing yourself.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
But no, people have kindly been coming along, so we're having a great time.
How much time did it take from the initial brainstorming stage before it was suitable to perform at the Forum?
Well, Heath and I say Heath McIver, that's the creepy man who follows Randy the we spent about 3 months working on each show of ours, so we sort of, back in November, December, start sitting down and coming up with storylines and things, and then work out how we can try and make that funny, and then the start of our touring year is normally over at the Adelaide Fringe Festival, so we were there for a month in February, and that's sort of where we can work the show up and make sure it's up to scratch before we bring it home.
Is there a sense of having to outdo your previous shows every time you begin writing a new one?
I think there is for us, only because you never want to go backwards, but at some point we'll do a worse show than the one we did before, and then that'll be the start of the decline, and it'll happen at some point. Unless we just get better and better and then get hit by a bus, but. So we try and relax slightly. I guess but you more just want to challenge yourself, I guess. You don't want to do things that are boring for yourself, and if people are paying money to see you, then you want to surprise them as well.
How have the nerves changed before going out on stage from when you first started compared to the current show?
Oh, well, when I first started doing my stand-up and stuff, sort of was 8 years ago, and I used to be pretty nervous before shows.
Yeah.
I think when you start, to start in comedy, you have to have a certain, psycho bent
and
an attention-seeking gene. So that sort of gets you through those early gigs, because some of them are atrocious. You got people heckling you and yelling at you, and your material's generally
shit.
Crap. I wasn't sure if I could say shit on, but I'm going to say shit now.
Go for it, man. Say whatever you want.
The material was shit.
Yeah.
And so you I think it sort of happens quite naturally that, over the years you get slightly more confidence at the same time as your gear gets better. And so these days I don't get nervous at all. I get sort of excited, and it's a good challenge. And probably I only get nervous if you started the show and the crowd aren't really going with you, and that's when you think, okay, I have to actually try and, how do we find a way to win them over now?
Yeah. Have you ever had a heated exchange with a heckler?
Yeah. I had probably the most heated exchange you could have in Adelaide a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I was doing a show with Heath Franklin's Chopper character.
Oh.
And so we were on stage together, and when we got a lady up on stage to do some sort of audience participation and stuff, and we were flirting with her and pretending it was like a blind date scenario, and she was loving it, and the whole crowd were into it. It was, pretty stock standard sort of stuff.
Yeah, fun, yeah.
A bit of fun. But I remember looking out and seeing in the audience there was this one guy who she'd been sitting next to who just wasn't laughing at all, furious. And after the show, we were in the dressing room and he stormed out the back. And
What?
And he said, like, this is, I can't explain properly over the radio how furious this guy was. He was screaming. He grabbed me. He made me get on my knees like an army drill.
He grabbed you?
Yeah. He made me. It was horrific. He was storming in, and he made me get on my knees and put my hands on my head like in an army.
Like a beheading video.
Yeah, it was amazing. And he's just going, don't you ever speak to my missus like that ever again. I'm going to put a bullet in your head. He was just...
A bullet in your head?
That were the exact words he used.
I would have been shitting my pants.
Yeah, it was one of those moments you only reflect on later, because he screamed for 3 minutes, and then he didn't even touch me after that. He just wanted to sort of, massively own me, which he did. And then he went and grabbed his lady and dragged the poor thing out of the theatre. It was extreme. So yeah, in answer to your question, that's a pretty extreme interaction with a heckler, although he chose to heckle me after the show in person.
I did not expect that response at all. I remember reading one of the first reviews I read about one of your shows was for Bin Night, and believe me, it was one of the harshest reviews I've ever read. They gave you 1 star out of 5. How much impact can a negative review have on your confidence when taking the stage?
Oh, I think I remember that review. I think it was one of these ones that was sort of like, last year their show was really good, and this year we hated it.
Yeah, he's just like, he is not funny, and I'm like,
yeah.
He couldn't be any more blunt.
Well, when you start out, it affects you a lot because you really want reviews, because that's really all you can have when you don't have big crowds. To have someone whose job it is to critique comedy say that you're funny means a lot,
Yeah.
And equally, if someone whose job it is to critique comedy says that you're shit, then you get upset about it. These days, I think I have a slightly different philosophy now, where if someone doesn't find me funny, I sort of have full respect for that, because it would be impossible for me to please everyone in the world, and nor do I really want to, because I think so long as you're doing what you find funny, then really you can't have any problems with whether...
Yeah.
I can't decide how many people like me and don't like me. That's sort of up to the universe. I can just do my stupid, piano-based shenanigans, working with puppets, and hopefully enough people are out there that'll want to come along and see it.
As long as the majority like what you're doing.
Well, yeah, and even if not a majority, even if it's not a majority, if it's just, if only 20 people in the world like my comedy, well, it'll make it harder to make a living off, but I'll just have to get a job there.
Even if the majority don't like it, if they pay to see you, who cares? They can say what they want.
Look, Brendan, that's a cynical way of looking at it, but yes, you're right.
Now, obviously, doing a live show with puppets is almost near impossible to do without at least a couple of technical issues. What are the most common you have, and how do you get around them?
Common technical issues with Randy is often, because our shows are very sort of theatrical and not like wanky theatrical with in costumes and stuff like that. So we some of the biggest issue is that it's staging, like actually having to move, props around and stuff like that. And we'll normally be caught in a blackout, or Randy/Heath may be caught sort of scuttling across the stage when the lights come up too early and stuff. But the great thing about doing, I think, theatrical comedy shows is that you can just constantly take the piss out of stuff when things go wrong.
Yeah.
Just last night we're doing the show, and about 3 things happened. At one point, Heath knocked in. He's playing a character like a ghost character.
Yeah.
And he knocked into the set and banged his leg really bad.
Oh, okay.
And just goes, shit. And if this was like a Shakespeare play, you couldn't get away with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. In the comedy show, we just roll with it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, do you sometimes hope for things to go wrong because it can just make for great improv?
Oh, absolutely. For us, it's all about that, and trying to surprise each other as well.
Yeah.
We got one character in the show. I'm not really giving everything away here, but there's like a gnome character who inhabits this haunted house.
Okay.
He normally enters the scene. His name is Phillywinkle, and he's like a full body sort of puppet that he's operates. And normally when he walks into the scene, he just comes in really quietly and surprises me. And last night he just decided to run on stage, and it scared the crap out of me. And so I had a genuine fearful reaction to the gnome last night.
That's great. That's what the audience wants.
Well, yeah, but then I just started laughing.
Yeah. What's your stance on the idea that foul language is cheap comedy?
It's interesting. There was an article today in the paper in the Herald Sun. They interviewed me about the exact same thing, because there's been a bit of a furore over the use of the C word and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't find swearing offensive. I find lots of. I think any word can be offensive if it's depending on how it's used.
Yeah.
But I think it's all about context. So I don't think that if there's thought and stuff behind it, then, I mean, some people accuse, swearing, they say if you swear you're being lazy. Now, whether or not you like Randy and my show, I don't think you could accuse it of being lazy, because we have slaved away over, there's songs and music and costumes and scene changes and a storyline and all that sort of thing. So you may think it's a piece of shit, but it's not a lazy piece of shit.
Yeah, swearing's just a small part of it.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's just a tool we use. We just try, and sometimes swearing will really help a joke, and sometimes it won't. So we have to watch ourselves. We always we want every swear word in the show, and there are a lot of them, but we want them all to have a place.
Yeah.
But no, I think that I find lots of things offensive, but swearing, just on its own, I don't have any issue with at all.
What offends you more than anything else?
Oh, Tony Abbott. Or, like there are all sorts of things in the world that, and that's the thing. It's like, aggressive swearing I really hate. That makes me, that's sort of, in real life or even in films and stuff. I don't really like that that vibe. But swearing, the people, that's the other thing. People will say, oh, you're swearing to. Do you enjoy offending people? And we never want to offend anyone. We'd prefer everyone who comes to our show to find it funny and to not be offended. But of course, that won't always be the case. Some people won't find it funny, and some people will be offended. But that's not our intention. We're doing it to try and make people laugh. It's just that, again, some people have different senses of humour. So we just do what we do. When I'm with my mates and stuff, we swear all the time.
Who doesn't?
Oh, exactly. That's and I think a lot of people get offended on behalf of other people. They're not actually offended themselves.
Yeah.
People who write to the paper going, "Oh, I'm sure people were angry about this," but yeah. So that's my diatribe on swearing.
Well, you've based a career around like working alongside a puppet. Were you a fan of aggro growing up?
I was a fan. Like, I used to watch Aggro and Anne-Marie, Cartoon Connection.
Yeah, loved that show.
But I was never like a massive puppet bitch or anything. Like, I was sort of, my main passion growing up was comedy. I used to watch just, lots of, people like Tripod and Lana Woodley and Sean McCarthy, all that sort of stuff. But puppets themselves have really just come through Randy, because I saw Randy performing in Melbourne and thought it was just really funny. And so I'm sort of a late bloomer with as far as my love of puppets goes.
And Heath is unbelievable as a puppeteer, isn't he?
Yeah, he's incredible. And I had this experience when I first saw Randy of just watching and forgetting that he was a puppet after a couple of minutes, because it's just it's such a wonderful character in itself.
Is there only one Randy, or are there a few spares lying around in case of emergency?
It's a very pertinent question, because there are two in existence now, but one of them is dressed up like an English lord. In a scene that we recently cut from the show. So.
Oh, okay then.
But we're looking at getting a spare Randy, because last year we were working on a sketch show called Good News World, which was sort of late night Channel 10 sketch show.
Yeah, I've seen all your clips on there. It's great.
Oh, man. Sweet. Well, that was our sort of project last year, and on the final episode, Heath McIver was travelling overseas to Germany, having a bit of a sabbatical, and I was heading back from Sydney to Melbourne, and my job was to bring Randy home.
Okay, then.
I had Randy in the suitcase, which I was like, oh shit, I feel like I'm babysitting him,
Yeah.
And sure enough, I get to Melbourne, and Randy does not come out of the baggage carousel.
Oh no!
Thinking, oh man, okay, my one time looking after Randy, and I've gone and fucked it,
Yeah.
And it was terrifying. I had 24 hours on the phone to Qantas trying to sort it all. Meanwhile, he turns up in Germany. He's waiting at his baggage carousel, and Randy comes out on the conveyor belt.
What?
And exactly, that was our response.
What the hell?
He calls me in Melbourne. I'm freaking out. I think it's Qantas calling me, and he says, "Why am I standing in Frankfurt holding Randy? I've lost Randy. What are you talking about?" It turns out that he had a few old baggage tags and stuff still on his bag. Even though I checked Randy, and the staff scanned it, thought it belonged to Heath, and so attached to his booking to Frankfurt.
Yeah.
And Randy literally followed Heath across the world.
That's great.
So, but on account of that, we do feel we should probably get a proper spare, because
you never know when one might pop up on eBay when you lose it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, you've commonly been referred to as one of the most respected and friendly comedians in our industry today, but what's the worst thing you've ever done to someone in the past you still regret to this day?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Excluding all the people I've killed, those.
Okay, we don't want to talk about that just yet. Yeah.
Worst things. Oh, look. Okay. Well. I don't know. Do you remember in the 90s there was this furore in the late 90s about this piece of artwork called Piss Christ?
I did not know this.
So this was a piece. It was in. If your listeners Google "Piss Christ," I'm sure you'll find it. It came to the National Gallery in Victoria, and it was a photograph of a crucifix of Jesus immersed in urine.
What?
So it was, a pretty sort of extreme photograph.
Yeah.
It was a piece of art, and I don't know whatever point they were sort of making. I don't think it was. Well, obviously, a lot of people thought it was blasphemous and so on. I don't think it was necessarily the intention, but it was there. It caused a massive outcry. People were sort of threatening to boycott the gallery and throwing hammers at the artwork and stuff.
Okay.
I was a Year 8 school student at the time, and I thought it would be funny to open up Microsoft Paint and create a bit of a bitmap cartoon called Piss Cameron, which was modelled on my classmate Cameron.
Oh.
So I drew a picture of Cameron immersed in urine and handed it around on the floppy disk.
The floppy disk, I love it.
In the class, and everyone sort of downloaded it and set it as their wallpapers, and so this image, Piss Cameron, became quite well known. And I feel bad about that.
Has he forgiven you?
If Cameron, well, I think so, because we're still in touch, but I don't know who ever addressed it directly, so if he's listening, in fact, I might make sure that he gets to hear this, because, Cameron, I do apologise, that was, I can't say that with my hand on my heart, because it was very funny now, though.
Yeah.
But I do, no, I have reason to believe he was upset at the time, and so I can't bring myself to say I regret it, because it was a good joke.
Yeah, no comedian regrets a good joke.
Yeah, that's the problem, but it was cruel, that's the problem. So
sometimes you've got to be cruel.
I don't know. I'm torn. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it made him stronger, a stronger person, and maybe it made me a better comedian, or maybe I shouldn't have done it.
Yeah, maybe you shouldn't.
Or maybe I've done worse things more recently, so I'm just trying to pick something from the late 90s that calls me of the question.
Yeah. Now, you've said before that you were the class clown back in high school. Would you say you tried to make people laugh in those days, or have you always considered yourself a funny person?
No, I think trying to make people laugh, as evidenced by Piss Cameron, is very much the no. I think with my mates and stuff, comedy's always been the thing that I love, and I always enjoy practical jokes and stuff. And no, for me, it's probably something that look, I don't know, maybe comes more through effort than naturally.
Yeah.
Like I base my shows around preparation and writing and that sort of stuff, as opposed to something
Yeah, just go out and improv.
And just improv and do what they like, which I'd love to watch, but that's not really me.
Yeah. How has marriage impacted your career?
It has, well, my wife has a job as well, so it's good financially, and that's really the only reason we did it, It's a pure cynical, we don't speak to each other.
Oh, of course. Well, who does, though, when you marry?
Yes. No, well, it hasn't impacted sort of, for better or worse as far as I can tell, although I'm probably a much happier person in general, so that's probably got to have a good impact.
Yeah. Is Hannah, is she your biggest critic, or do you try and keep your career and private life separate?
She's, well, it's interesting you know her name. I don't know whether whether Google has provided that, because I've never...
Dude, have you been wondering who those eyes were over the hedge at the window every night?
I'm looking at you right now.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, she's absolutely my biggest critic, but that's I think, a mark of a good marriage. It would be horrible to be with someone who simply, sucked up and told you were funny when you weren't.
Yeah.
Far rather that she tells me something's not funny, rather than 500 people in a theatre telling me at the same time. And
then one guy running around the back and threatening to put a bullet in your head.
Precisely.
Yeah. Does it ever get annoying when you go to like a party and people just expect you to be funny?
No, it's not annoying for me, because I don't know if people do expect that or not.
Okay.
It's funny when you say party, because people sort of have these ideas of random parties. I don't really go to parties.
I don't go to parties either. I'm a loner, man.
I don't know whether these parties happen or not, but I catch up with my schoolmates and stuff, and so we all. But they don't. Like they've been putting up with my shit for years. So
yeah.
I tend to be quite quiet around them. And
yeah.
No, it's and plus, I've only started. I don't feel very well known or anything, to be absolutely honest. So,
dude, you're well known. Don't worry.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. But this year, since since the sketch show last year and stuff, it's the first time I've actually had a few people, come and say hi to me in random locations or whatever, and so that's just all. It's all quite a thrill. It's quite nice. There's nothing annoying. Maybe if you were like, I don't know, Will Anderson or Dave Hughes level, that would be annoying, because everywhere you went, you'd be recognised and stuff.
Can you settle something for me now? Dave Hughes, is that his real voice or not?
Yeah, it is.
Really?
We're sharing a venue at the moment, and so he's on just before us. And he's not as angry in real life if he's like,
yeah.
But no, that's just his voice.
I just wanted to know whether it was an act or not.
He's in performative mode, but
Yeah.
no, you can see him on 7pm Project and stuff talking, and that's him.
Yeah, I just didn't know whether it was just all an act.
Oh, that would be, the man works so much that it would be a pretty extreme act to keep up.
I know.
He's on TV or radio like all day long. So.
He's the ultimate worker. Have you ever had a situation where you've loved another comedian's work, thought they were hilarious, then met them in real life and realised they're actually a dick?
The answer is no. I'm very glad to be able to say that. Otherwise, I'd feel like I'd be sort of lying. But if it had happened, I don't know whether I would probably say it publicly because it's probably not good,
Yeah.
Public or colleague relations. But no, it actually hasn't happened. But overwhelmingly, comedians are a pretty friendly bunch, and you do remember the ones who were specifically really helpful early on, like people like Dave O'Neill was just, when I had just done a couple of gigs and. He had no reason to give me the time of day or anything, but he was just really helpful and supportive. And other people like Frank Woodley, who was sort of my comedy heroes at school and stuff, and still had the time, helped me out with a show a few years ago and stuff like that. So it's a pretty small sort of community once from the inside.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, well, like I said earlier before, I'm a big fan of your skits on Good News World. Do you think there's ever a potential for a full-fledged TV sitcom there?
Randy and I hope so. I mean, we've been working on our own sort of TV show idea for a couple of years, actually. So Good News World came along quite late in the piece just as an opportunity that we jumped on board, and that was awesome. But yeah, we've wanted to do TV for, well before that as well, and we'd love to write something set in our world.
Yeah, because I think Australia really needs a live sitcom.
Oh, thank you. Well, we'll do our best to carry that flag.
Thanks, man. Now, when do you think you'll ever grow the balls to do the Britney Spears routine again?
Oh, now hang on. This is not the Britney Spears song, because I had a Britney song and then I had a second Britney song which went for 10 minutes about Britney and Jermaine Greer.
Yeah.
Is that the one you refer to?
Yeah, the one that absolutely bombed.
Oh, yeah. Oh, look, I don't know. I don't even know if I could remember it, to be honest. I've probably got the lyrics written somewhere. It was, I have, since, for those who are listening, this is a song I wrote that was like a 10-minute epic about Britney Spears and Jermaine Greer, and it was just a stupid story that went for ages, and I performed it one night at a big gig, and it just did not go well. And I never performed it again. But what I was trying to do with that song, I think I sort of failed. I've since written another song called the Mermaid Song, which I think is slightly more successful in my aim, and I've got that I've got a new album coming out soon, so you can hear the actual results of my comedic intent.
Okay.
That song, as opposed to the failed intent, which was the Britney Spears song.
Yeah. Well, just now, a couple more questions, man. I'll let you go, because you're a busy man. Where do you see yourself on both a personal level as well as your career in 12 months' time?
In 12 months' time?
Yeah.
Personally, I'll be, I guess, so long as I continue living, then I should make it to 29 years old. And professionally, look, just I have no real, if people stop laughing tomorrow at me and my career, washes up on the rocks, then I've got no complaints. It's been a fun ride. So if I'm still making money from it and getting by, then I'll be happy, man.
That's all you can hope for. And just one last question, man. I ask this to everybody. What advice do you have for all aspiring comedians and performers?
Don't steal my fucking joke.
Yeah.
No, look, I have to, since it has been a lovely chat, I feel the need to respond properly, and I would just say, just do what you find funny, and don't try and do what you think the crowd will like, but actually do what you think you would enjoy watching yourself.
Yeah. Well, there you go, guys. Make sure you get on down to the Forum during April to see Sammy J and Randy perform their new show, The Inheritance. And for all the latest news and info, either like Sammy on Facebook at facebook.com/SammyJComedian or visit his official website at sammy-j.com. Once again, Sammy, thanks for your time, man, and good luck with the rest of your shows.
Thanks very much, man.
Catch you later, man.